G'day fellas, and welcome to another Age of Empires 4 video where we take a look at the House of Lancaster, the brand new English variant from the new DLC, the Knights of Cross and Rose. In today's video, we look to answer the question, how good is the Manor actually? Now, the Manor is a unique building, unique to the House of Lancaster, that is very similar to the Dutch Bank. If you ever played Age of Empires 3, then they will look very similar to you. The way it works is quite simple. You pay a whole bunch of resources up front, and it's going to generate passive resources for you. So when we compare this to something like a second town center, how much of a difference is this going to make over the course of the game? That's the question that we're looking to answer and to see when the payoff points are for these. So I'm going to give you a warning right now. There will be spreadsheets in this video, so just be aware. We're going to start by diving into a graph, because this graph does hold part of the answer to our question. So the first line that you'll see on the graph, the blue one, represents a single town center over the course of a game. As long as you're training villagers at every single 20 seconds, this is what your total resources gathered throughout a game is going to look like. The second line that you will see here is a second town center being added around the 5-minute mark is when we've put it for. And you can see it eventually catches up. Obviously, it's ahead of the blue line, but it eventually catches up to the yellow line. And that yellow line is the line that you get if you were to create 9 manors, in addition to that first town center that you start out with. That is what this line is. So, as you can see, there's quite a bit of difference between the yellow and the red, and the question's going to be about when does this red line actually catch up to the yellow line in a game. So let's go in, we'll dive back into the game and talk a little bit about this as we open it up. So when it comes to the way that we've done this testing, I've gone with an optimal build order here. Now, I'm calling this optimal. Keep in mind that I've been playing now for probably about 2 days, and I've just been, trying to min-max as much as I can. So just with regard to this starting build order, there'll be another video that's on this separately. It's a bit of a fast castle style, but essentially you open up 6 vills on food, 3 vills on gold. A 7th villager is going to come back out over to food right here. And then we're going to go out over to stone. And then from there, we're going to look to get the age up in. That'll come in at about 2 minutes. So if we pause at 1, there we go, 2 minutes on the dot. So it's a very early age up, all 3 vills on gold. So looking for a super duper fast age up. And basically, we want to get our 3 manors online immediately. From here, we're going to wait until our 3 vills are out over on stone. And then when we rally this vill here out over to wood, then we'll move everybody across over here. So we've got plenty of vills in the town center. But that's essentially the sort of starting stage. And we're basically just looking to rush as many manors as we possibly can. And that's going to be our basic benchmark for our 3 manor opening. So if we were to just sort of start up a game, playing on the ranked ladder, and we were just going for this immediately, what would the actual numbers look like? So if we take a look at these numbers, you'll see the first one is finished construction at 423. So about 37 seconds before the 5-minute mark. The second one is going to be completed around that 5-minute mark. And the third one is going to be completed on the opposite side of the 5-minute mark, obviously, about 5 minutes and 30, somewhere in that region. So basically, what we're saying is with these 3 manors, the way that we're calculating it is from 5 minutes that every single one of these manors is online, because one of them starts early, one of them starts late. So it's just easier for us to go, you know what, we're just going to start them all at the same time. That's the way that we're benchmarking these first sets of manors. So let's go in and take a look at the data, see what the data says about when these guys are good versus when the second town center eventually catches up to them. So when we think about the second town center, you're putting out a whole bunch of resources immediately. You're forking out 750 resources, and then you're slowly going to have to pay 20 food every 20 seconds, and that over time is eventually going to pay off itself. But the question's going to be about which one pays itself off faster. Well, not so much necessarily which one pays itself off faster, but how long does it take before investing in that second TC was actually the correct decision. So let's go over to the spreadsheet. We'll change over the tabs from thanks step AI brother to thanks AI brother, and we are confronted with a spreadsheet. So let's just explain it first to start off with. So first and foremost, we've got the first column, which is representative of game time in minutes and seconds. The second one is just representative of game time in seconds. Makes it a little bit easier to track for our AI, which we're obviously using to help us with this. I've double checked and verified everything looks to be pretty good. But if you spot anything, let me know. So you start off with 6 villagers. They're going to be gathering at a rate of 40 resources per minute. Now, this is done over the course of the entirety of the game. We haven't factored in things like upgrades, things like walking distance, things like wheelbarrow, things like civilization bonuses. As an example, the House of Lancaster gets an extra 25% gather rate on sheep. We haven't factored that in here. So just keep that in mind through all of this testing, we've just looked to try and keep it as standard as possible. So every 20 seconds, you're going to be adding in an additional villager, and as you collect more resources, that's what you see over here in this third column. The second column is the amount that they're adding to that total each interval. So every villager that you generate is going to be generating more and more resources. So by the end, you can see that you've got 84 villagers, and they're all going to be generating 1,107 resources every 20 seconds. That's the general idea here. The second column, or the second, I guess we'd call it, yeah. I guess there's 3 columns, and then within that, with those 3 columns, there's another bigger column we've got for the second town center. So this is if you were to add in that second town center. Now you can get a second town center very quickly with the House of Lancaster. At about 5 minutes, your town center is complete. So that is a very quick town center. So basically, you start producing villagers at 5 minutes. The first one comes out at 5:20. At 5:40, we've got its first interval that it's recording. And then over the course of a 30-minute game, so that's the benchmark that we're going to be using here. This probably isn't the best benchmark to use. Probably something closer to the 25-minute mark is going to make a little bit more sense. We can see the contribution that it is adding to the total economy. So the first town center and the initial 6 villages will add 43,000 resources, whereas the second town center, even though it's added 60 vills compared to 81, it's only adding about 23,000 resources, and that is just simply because of the start, just how strong, the fact that basically by the time this starts generating villages, you've already had 22 villages out for the first TC, so it's already got a massive boost that's sort of started, and it's rolling, and you got to catch up to it, so it's going to take time. So that's what this column is. And then here, we've got each of the manors represented. So the way that we've grouped them is with regard to groups of 3. So if we take a look at our manors, we've got 3 at the moment that we can build. We've then got an additional tech that we can get, which unlocks another 3. And then there's another tech after that, which gets us another 3. So these are kind of our breakpoints, just because these techs are a little bit more expensive. And I think that those are typically going to be the breakpoints that you look to try and go for. You're going to, you're not just going to be starting up a game and being like, you know what, I'm going to get 3 manors and then get my tech, and then I'm not going to build any more manors. You're going to go, I'm going to get 3 manors, and then I'm not going to get the tech. I'm going to get 3 manors, I'll get the tech, and then I'll get another 3 manors, right? Like, we're definitely going to try and optimize around that. So with regard to that, that's sort of how this is broken down, and it's broken down over the same period. So each manor earns 115 resources every minute. There's 3 manors, which means after a minute, you've got 345 resources. And then, of course, over 3 intervals, that's 115 each, which is why it looks like it's counting quite a bit here. Now, with regard to the timing, these are all accurate as of this game. So basically, I tried to rush the manors out as quickly as I could. I've did a couple of attempts to try and optimize it as quickly as I could, about 15 to 16 attempts to try and get it the fastest, and this was the fastest that I could do it. When I say with regard to fastest, that's just talking about villager optimization, different areas, different timings, which comes first, that sort of thing. Not about like, okay, can we get it a second faster, that sort of thing. No, it's like, okay, what if we rally to gold now instead of rallying to stone, that sort of thing. So these 3 manors are all going to come up at about the 7-minute and 30-second mark. So they're all online at 7 minutes 30. So we will start the counting from the 8-minute mark, just because we want to be conservative, right? We don't want to say, oh, we'll start counting at 7:40. No, well, we need time for them to start coming online and start working, if that makes sense. So we want to try and be conservative, because if anything, we haven't been conservative with the villagers, or rather, we've been conservative with the villagers, so we'll be conservative with the manors as well. And then finally, the last 3 of the manors come online quite soon after. So at 9 minutes and 40, that is when they have their first production. So around 9 minutes 30, 9 minutes 20, they are completed. And we can see right down here, they are about to be completed here. It's coming in at about the 9-minute mark. So look, is it going to be a viable strategy to rush all of your manors 9 minutes and 15 into the game? We'll have to wait and see. I can definitely see a world where it works. Just to talk a little bit about theory, like now that we're at this point, 9 minutes into the game, we can click this button and all of a sudden we can get 11 demi-lancers, which is pretty good. We can go castle age. There's a lot that we could do at this point in the game, but at the same time, are you going to be able to sit here for 9 minutes and not get harassed by your opponent? Probably not. So it's more of a theory approach rather than a practical approach, and hopefully that makes a bit more sense too. So let's go take a look over at the spreadsheet, because now that we've sort of got our baseline, we can understand a little bit more about where we're going from here. So now that we know that, we can look at how good manors are actually. So our first column is the total resources that are gathered by a single town center here, and it starts off at 60,600, the same number that you would see over here. The second column is over the course of a 30-minute game, how many resources 2 town centers would get together, and that total is 97,600, which is this plus this. The third column is when we have a single town center. We don't ever make that second town center, and we add in those first 3 manors and we just leave it. So this, where you will see that it's bolded, is where it overtakes, or where it stays ahead of the second town center. So it stays ahead for quite some time. It immediately breaks away at the 5-minute mark and pulls away and stays ahead up until the 11-minute mark. So by 11 minutes, if you had 2 players, one with 2 town centers and the other with a town center and 3 manors, the 3-mana player is going to be ahead for those first 11 minutes. That means that they've got extra resources that they can spend on units. So as an example right here, if we were to look at it, you would see that there is an extra 500 resources that you could spend on units. But of course, it doesn't stop there, because that's the first of the equation. The second one is when you do 6 manors. And of course, we start off with the exact same baseline, and that's only going to get stronger, because when you eventually add in those extra resources that come through from the 4th, 5th, and 6th mana, that is now going to even push that number out further. And it's going to mean that you've got situations like this where you're starting to build up a 700 resource difference between them. And that's going to continue, and it's going to mean that over the course of a game that you're staying ahead even longer. Now up to 15 minutes, that all of a sudden you are ahead of the 2 TC player. And then finally, we've got what happens when you add in the 9th mana. So what the 7th, 8th, and 9th mana, they're going to be coming in. They're going to have the exact same numbers as the previous ones. The only difference is they're going to be added in at this point right here. And that's when the breakaway starts to happen. And that's when you can really start to see these numbers pull ahead. More than 1,000 resources difference here, 1,200 resources difference here. Here you go, another 1,200. So they're staying ahead for even longer. And it's only by the 19-minute and 40-second mark, so basically 20 minutes into this game, does the second town center actually come back and manage to get ahead. So when it comes to this graph over here, this is the 20-minute mark into the game. This is finally when we actually see the 2 town centers overtake. And we can actually edit this chart as well. If we go ahead and not resize the chart, what do we want to do here? We want to change something in here, but data range. Here we go. We want to change the data range, and let's change it to, let's go with like 74. Does that work? That works. So here you go. So we can see just how high ahead it's going to go. And that's going to continue on that trajectory as you add more villages in. But essentially what this means is that when you're adding manors, because one of the key differences between the House of Lancaster and the Dutch in Age of Empires 3 is that the Dutch in Age of Empires 3 they have a villager cap. You could only build up to 50 villages with the Dutch. Whereas here, the House of Lancaster, you can build as many villages as you want. And because of that, it means that you're not, there's no downside to going a second town center. Playing as the Dutch in Age of Empires 3, you wouldn't make a second town center because you couldn't really get value. You'd be making 20, 30 vills, and then it was like, okay, do I make a second town center? What's the point? I'm only going to be going up to 50 vills cap. Whereas here, there's no vill cap. And because of that, what this means is that there is an alternative way to play. There is a way that you can maximize your early game efficiency, but at the same time still have the opportunity not to fall behind in the late game. Of course, there are huge benefits to having all of these resources being passively generated for you throughout the course of a game. We haven't even mentioned the fact that once you get to the Imperial Age, you'll have access to Scutage, which is going to allow you to have even more resources that are generated here. But all of this is done for free population, essentially. You can have 70 vills out, 80 vills out, and the rest of it can be manors and military units. Not a lot of other civs get to do that. I think the closest you'd probably get would be the Malians with their cows and their pit mines. That's pretty much it. So it definitely means that with regard to the question, how good is the mana actually? I'd say it's pretty damn good. And I think it's only going to be a matter of time until we really start to work out how many manors can people get away with reasonably. Because if we take a look at this game right here, we were out on stone for quite a while. It doesn't make sense to be out here gathering up all the stone that we need. We need 900 stone. We can't do that all before the 4-minute mark or the 5-minute mark. It means that we've got to really start to make decisions, and perhaps we do eventually see players go, you know what, I'm going to prioritize gathering up my stone over my gold because I prioritize that more, and then any of the resources that I'm generating, if I don't have gold control, I'll just build a market and then trade that out for gold if I need it. I suspect that we're probably going to see players really look to try and optimize around the mana. But overall, look, I think that just to close this one out, because we've got the answer that we were looking for at the 19-minute and 40 mark. Now all of a sudden it becomes more optimal to have a second town center than it does to have those 9 manors. But there is a caveat to that, and that is one of the things that's really important when it comes to the mana. Your resources cannot be denied. they can be, obviously you can lose your manors, but you're not going to be idled out. If a raid comes through, you're not going to be jumping in the town center. You're not going to be losing your manors to a knight or two in the backline that you're not going to notice about during the course of a fight. The manor is a incredibly powerful building because it allows you to escape those sorts of traps. And because of that, it's quite valuable. On top of that, it's also infinite resources. And obviously, when it comes to games like this, one of the key things that we're looking to do is we're looking to fight and scrap over resources. We want to protect our berries. We want to fight over the deer. Professional scouts has been an integral part of the meta for at least the last couple months because of that very fact. And this is a civilization that can get around that, both with regard to wood and with regard to food. So I think what you'll most likely see with regard to the way that players look to develop is most likely opening up with 3 manors, getting some military units out onto the map, making a decision about whether they go castle, whether they stay feudal, adding in more and more manors, and then eventually adding in the second town center, because you've got to keep in mind that every single minute that goes past here, this second town center is catching you up, or it is catching up to you, right? Like, think of it as the drag racing car with the NOS. It's that same sort of thing. They're eventually going to catch up to you. But if you add that second town center in at the 16-minute mark, or the 18-minute mark, then technically you're still going to be ahead when it comes to the total resources you've got. And by the time it rolls around into the end of the game, you're going to be very far ahead because you'll be ahead on population, you'll be ahead on food security, on wood security, you'll be ahead. Also, there's gold as well to consider. There's a lot of really important factors to consider. And we haven't even talked about the Lancaster Castle and the bonuses that you are provided if you do have the Lancaster Castle. But we'll leave that for another video. That's today's video. How good is the manor actually? I reckon it's pretty damn good. I'm curious what you think, though. If you think I've left anything out, if there were any issues with my numbers, please let me know down in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video today, feel free to leave a like. And of course, we'll catch you guys in the next one. Thank you very much for watching.